Good morning. Happy Labor Day and happy Monday. This is Faith Family Focus, and I am one of your co hosts, Faith Suggs, former Duke women's basketball graduate and now CEO and founder of my social media and branding company, Brand by Faith. And this wonderful man next to me is my father, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served as VP and the executive board with the RPFPC. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
Good morning, Faith. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day.
Second Labor Day episode.
Our Labor Day episode. This is the last day people can wear white. Just want everyone to know that. That's
Somebody asked me that question today. You can't wear not even a winter white?
I don't. What is winter white? But
winter white too, But so
what's winter white?
I don't know.
Yeah, gotta watch out for you. No, I think it just means like no white pants.
Right.
Which I'm iffy on even before Labor Day. Awesome stuff. How's the weather over there? Is it exciting? Any plans for Labor Day?
No, so the weather is a nice day, like it was this weekend. After a week of a lot of rain and wind and storms, but the last 2 or 3 days has been really beautiful. Sunshine, not very hot. It's a beautiful day. I have nothing really planned today other than just maybe walk the dogs.
Nice.
How about you? Yeah.
No plans. Have never really celebrated Labor Day. I've always been working or playing. So there's never, they give student athletes this day off, but it's never really off.
I remember our college coach, one of the players said, "So are we going to be off on Labor Day?" And the coach said, "We are going to labor on Labor Day."
Yeah. It's funny because you never know who celebrates Labor Day.
Right.
And a lot of us probably don't even know the history behind the day. So we just know it's for those who work and those who work hard, but it actually stems all the way back to, industrial labor in the United States and where it began. What's going on? So I don't know if you watched. Let's dive right into U.S. Open. Let's go right into our upset. Naomi Osaka lost a lot the other day to 18-year-old from Canada. I don't know if you watched the match. We were on the edge of our couches watching it. Did you catch it?
No, I did not. So I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, Naomi.
I know she lost. I know that she had a little of a breakdown. I heard a little of the interview afterwards. So why don't you fill the viewers in?
I think we have to remember that Naomi Osaka is still 23 years old. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the hardest things that happened in her career was the fact that she beat Serena Williams at 20. That opened the door towards a career I don't think she was ready for. When she played the other night against Fernandez is an 18-year-old from Canada. Little girl got some stuff to her. She's good. I think we're looking at a really great tennis player in the making that beat Naomi Osaka the other night. Naomi did lose her composure, but it was the type of composure. Have you ever played tennis or golf and you have that sudden urge that you want to break the golf club or slam tennis racket?
That happened with all golf.
All of her balls were landing either right outside the line, or she'd have a wide open moment to just score and she would hit it out.
Yeah.
And you could just tell that her brain was not in it. She looked overwhelmed. She looked out of shape. She still looked powerful. Some of her serves were like unbelievable. That girl can serve like 110, 114. That's crazy. Like that ball coming at you. But that young girl she never ever backed away from the line. She's told the line the whole time. And she returned a lot of her serves. But yeah, Naomi just could not catch a break. And when you have that one set that you can't catch a break, it just propelled her into frustration, emotional, what it was. I wish she had kept her composure a little more, but at the end of the day, we got to remember she's 23 years old. And I went and played golf on Saturday, and I was worse emotionally than Naomi. I wanted to break my golf club. So in the moment, I was just like, I understand completely on that end of it. I was disappointed in how she carried herself in a little bit, but I also was like, these are competitors. She only got one warning. She threw a racket a couple times, but the judge didn't give her warnings. 'Cause I think we all could kind of tell, girl can't catch a break today. It was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch, especially after the year that she had. You know what I mean? It was hard to watch, but I'm interested. She said she's gonna take some time away from tennis. I'm interested to see um, what that means. I'm interested to see. Like I said, that I really think her beating Serena Williams at 20 years old is probably the worst thing for her to do at 20 years old, because that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to do. Like, where do you go from after beating Serena? Now you have to beat everybody. You can't lose. So it was disappointing, and I really wish. I hate watching her lose. I hate watching Serena lose. Now I hate watching Naomi lose, and so yeah, it was disappointing. But hopefully she bounces back. I don't really, but I will say this: if you did not catch the U.S. Open yet, catch that girl Fernandez. She's only 18 years old. She upset Naomi Osaka the other day. I think she advances to play another lefty soon. So, but she was very good. She started to get a little cocky too. She was doing some dances. It was really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were speaking, I was thinking about um, what's happening. Uh, some of these young athletes, what's the reason? Okay, are you getting that?
No, I can hear you. I kind of you're starting off with what's happening with these athletes now.
Yeah, what's happening with the athletes? I mean, you look at, um, no, I mean, this is, I mean, being competitive in individual sports. This is recently, um, this has been brought by how some of these athletes are having a really hard time struggling with the pressure.
The pressure.
The pressure. And what is pressure than it was 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago? Because athletes so much behind the line long term. And I'm just trying to figure out what is happening today. Is it social media? Is it publicity? What is it that makes it a little bit harder
I think that's
for
what it is.
athletes to navigate through?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Spot on. I think that now a lot of these athletes in all sports are getting levels of publicity that we really saw, Michael Jordan get, Magic Johnson get, Muhammad Ali get, like we're talking about top black athletes historically who shook the ground when they walked because of the amount of publicity and media that trailed them, right? It was something it was Madonna-esque, you know what I mean? That type of fascination over every single thing those people were doing. And now we're seeing it sort of be normalized towards and spread across all sports, right? Because we have so much accessibility and visibility to sports, right? We could watch tennis when we want to watch tennis. We could watch the Olympics when we watched every sport in the Olympics. We could watch track. We had all eyes in computers on these athletes, and that's a lot of pressure. And then you go to social media where every single person is entitled to an opinion. And it's easy to tell these young athletes don't read what people talk about you or say about you on social media, because it's different when the media does it, right? Only so many newspapers can be reprinted. But we're talking about blogs, newspapers, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, Facebook, podcasts, just people laying out what they think about Naomi Osaka or what they think about LeBron James and his decision to do this. It's grueling. It's just more eyes on these people. And then you have this idea that it's like they're supposed to then be perfect from there on out. And we all know that's impossible to do. And like I said, Naomi beating Serena Williams, who is the greatest in tennis, and then she's also the greatest black woman you know what I mean? We're now, all the things that she took down when she beat Serena then fell onto her shoulders. And I truly do not think that Naomi Osaka was prepared for the level of pressure that comes across with that. And I think that we all know she already has issues with mental illness, which isn't something you bring up in light. They brought that up multiple times during her match, which I didn't really like. The pressure is harder now. I think it's because it's just more eyes around you. And every time you turn on ESPN, you're there and everybody can talk about you. And Stephen A. Smith can call you a bum. And you know what I mean? It's just so much more visibility and access to insult people. And I think that a lot of people who make mistakes immediately think of, gosh, now I'm going to be on social media. Now people are gonna make fun of me on, you know what I mean? Now that's something they're gonna think about. Forget the loss, forget this, forget that. They have to think about all that stuff. And I think that it's hard because a 23-year-old, when you saw her go back into the locker room and then come back, you could see on her face she apologized to the judge. You could tell she was kind of ashamed of herself. And as I look back on it, as all of us who are 23, 20 to 23, or even 16 to 23, like you make mistakes, even past that, that you were ashamed of. But her mistakes were broadcasted all over the world. And I think that we can say pressure is a big thing 100%. I think she folded under it. But I also think that there's a lot more pressure on these athletes now. And there's no way for us to monitor it in a way to protect them from it. We just kind of stay strong. And I don't really know if we have a way to go about it, but I do think that the pressure to win is the same, but the amount of media and access to these athletes is way on a grander scale than we have ever seen.
Does
And
it does being a person of color in sports make it even more difficult? Is the lens different?
yeah, because if you lose, you know it's going to be hyper aggressive in comparison to if Michael Phelps loses, right? I mean, and that's just the truth of it. When Serena Williams threw her racket down, compared to every other male tennis player from Europe who was throwing his racket down, she was called names. She was drawn into these cartoons as this angry black woman. And it was like, people love to say, oh my gosh, it's always a race thing. Well, this country was built off the backs of race. So if we really want to think about it, at the end of the day, all of us accidentally fall into these biases racially and culturally and religiously about when we meet people, right? And so if Naomi Osaka, a biracial Japanese and Haitian girl who represented Japan, right, goes to New York, beats Serena Williams. First of all, she got booed after she could beat Serena, okay, at 20 years old because she wasn't supposed to do that. Comes back and loses to this young girl, it's amazing talent at 18 years old. Yeah, Naomi's going to be hyper attacked. Simone Biles is going to be hyper attacked because a lot of the people in control of the narrative, the media narrative, are not Black people. So they don't understand or relate to Simone Biles' face of shock or Naomi Osaka's frustration. They can't, right? It's like if you walk into a preschool and there's a white kid who stubs his toe and there's a Black kid that stubs his toe. As a Black person, or a biracial person who has witnessed Black people my whole life, I immediately am like, I understand that child's in pain just as much as that child's in pain, right? But for a lot of people who haven't been exposed to both races or many different cultural backgrounds, they aren't capable yet to be able to understand that their bias is creeping in on why they think one kid is tougher than the other, or that their kids should stick it up and be stronger and bite their lip and be okay, right? That's a big thing that goes from our media to our athletes to our healthcare to that we have these biases within us as Americans, and we're working out and we're trying to straighten it out. But it definitely falls on how the media attacked Naomi Osaka when she first stepped away from the French Open, and how the media attacked Simone Biles when she chose not to participate in the Olympics because of the mental health and the twisties that was happening in her brain. The same thing when LeBron James decided he was leaving Cleveland to go to Miami, and we saw angry people, not going to say what kinds, but we saw angry people burning jerseys, saying they're willing to kill and send death threats to LeBron James, right? There's a hyper aggression towards that because they think that these type of people, these Black people, these strong athletes who have persevered and pushed to the top should be strong enough to take it. And that's not fair to them.
They're still human beings with emotions and feelings,
Yes.
and they're just because there are these super athletes that they it's not that they need to be able to endure more. They're tougher,
Right.
right? You know.
Right.
So no, I was when you were saying that, it's just really interesting how there's just so much more conversation around, you know, our gymnasts, our tennis players, individuals, our golf player. tigers, and there's so much more conversation around it
Mm-hmm.
than and I think that's it's always existed. It's always existed, but these are sports that traditionally black athletes were not dominant in.
Which is also a thing.
Yes.
Which is also a thing. And I want to point out something else with a good description. Who was the running back from the Minnesota Vikings who got in trouble because he told his son he was going to go get a switch, which for the black community knows that that's a normal conversation. That's
He actually
sad.
got in trouble. He actually spanked his son. Yeah.
Okay, so spankings compared to, and I think Ben Roethlisberger's career has been extremely successful. He's been a great asset to Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger has done, according to Pittsburgh media, according to ESPN, according to the NFL, Ben Roethlisberger. I don't want to throw Deshaun Watson out there yet because we don't have the clear stuff behind it, but similar dynamics, right? So let's understand that we do have this historical bias racially in sports, in history, in everything, because we're taught in history that one of these races persevered and was strong because it went through so much, right? Great stuff. However, that sometimes affects how we treat people because we think they should be able to take it. So that's just something that we're also working on, and that's something we definitely talked about with the election with in America. It's a big discussion around a lot of college ethics right now, and a lot of college students are learning about that stuff right now. I would encourage everyone to learn a lot about the biases a little bit in between racially with just athletes is actually very interesting, but also healthcare, especially in young children's healthcare. But yeah, I was sad for Naomi. I really was. I was sad because I've had those moments of frustration. You've had those moments of frustration where you felt ashamed of how you acted. Except for here's the difference between me and you. We weren't one of two people on a court in a $24,000 person stadium in New York City at the US Open. So for me, I was like, cringe because she's doing stuff that she has to do to learn from as a 23-year-old, except she's doing it on such a grand scale that people can hold that over her whole career. It was hard to watch. It was.
Well, actually, it was Adrian Peterson who was the running back, but
Adrian
but
Peterson.
but that is a point. The emotion that comes from culturally us, right? It's sometimes perceived so differently, even in the workforce. Why are you angry? Why are you being aggressive? Right? Where you're just sharing the same level of emotion as a normal person.
Yeah.
That's that lens, and that's that talk about microaggression. So those are those things that we got to continue to work on, and you are aware of it. I know that I'm aware of it because I've been accused of it. And
Yeah.
your mom would tell me, she said, you got to remember that you are a person, you're a supervisor. When you have conversations with people, you have to remember that of your presence, and that you may need to adapt. You don't need to. Well, you need to adapt, change. Maybe bring your conversation down a level because it does exist that this guy, this big guy, is a football player. He's telling me to do my work, and it comes across very aggressive. Where if my counterpart had the same conversation, it wouldn't come across that way. So when you were sharing that with me, I those were the thoughts that were coming in my mind on how even that level of scrutiny has a lot to do with how some of these young African American kids or kids of color are dealing with a lot of this overly scrutiny, just because.
Pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. Yeah. So no.
We have the competitive pressure, and then we have the pressure of
Right.
being the first in a community, being the first in a community around people who aren't looking like pressure. It was just a lot. You're right. It's just too much. That is where the pressure comes from. It's not the pressure of competing. And you know what? It probably it just makes them not want to compete anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like your grandmother used to tell me, you know what? It's going to exist. You have to fight through it. Unfortunately, you have to fight through it. And I hope that she figures it out. But it's not going to go away. So
she figured it out for herself. Yeah.
Yes. It's not going to go away. and she has to. My mom said, so that means you got to run that much faster. You got to do that much more work to get to even the playing
Yeah.
field. You have to do it, right? Or you give up. And you don't want to give up because now you're defeated when you give up.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
you're taking yourself off the grid. You don't want that. Okay, so
Yeah.
that was a good topic.
Yeah, we like I love talking about Naomi. I love talking about sports in general. I love when I was just the other day I was watching I was like solo short sports are the hardest sports to
They are
compete in.
individual sports are
Yeah.
tough.
Tennis is up there in the top three worldly sport. You know what I mean? It is international and it is hard to become successful in that sport. Man, you are on your own. Your coach is not involved. You know what I mean? Tennis is such a mental sport.
Yeah, I know you got your really dear friend Chris Bank, who is a phenomenal tennis player. He's been on the show, and you
Yeah.
really understand because he's probably shared a lot of that dynamic with you. That was a great show that you guys had. He really gave a really good uh, lens on how difficult that sport is.
Yeah, tennis is. But yeah, but also welcome back, everyone. We just finished talking a little bit about Naomi Osaka. You can watch the show later on. It replays over and over on our Facebook. It's also on E360TV. It's also on YouTube. It's all over, right? But today is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to you. You joining us. Feel free to share the show. A quote of Monday, even though it is Labor Day and it's a holiday, we still need some push to get through the week. I chose it for Labor Day themed. It's opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and it looks like work.
I
I thought
love
that was fitting, regardless, because we just had a great conversation on Friday about the Great Resignation, and people are resigning from their typical 9 to 5 jobs, but they're still transitioning into now a more creative, entrepreneur-led, get down dirty, start your own stuff type of workplace. And I thought that was perfect because it applies to those who are going back to work their normal jobs, also the ones who are trying to start a business because you can't do anything without a little elbow grease. After this quick commercial, we will dive into talking about a few great topics within Labor Day, the history of it, ups and downs of workplace, and also a little bit of the change in mentality towards work, and what it is that we have to kind of dive into, and what if it's fluff or it's real stuff. So we'll see you guys in a second. Yep, that's a reminder. The Huddle, hosted by a Faith Family Focus spinoff, is live next week, Wednesdays, starting September. I believe that's the 15th. Gosh, September loses with me a little bit, but it is every Wednesday starting next week. So if you're free, join us. And you can also catch it later on in the day. But to dive a little bit in, Labor Day 2021, it is Monday, September 6th. It's normally the first Monday of every September. It pays tribute to contributors and achievements of the American workers, which was built off the backs, if you look back on it, industrial workers and factory workers and railroad workers and people that kind of built this country. It was created as a movement in the 19th century and became a federal holiday in 1894. It also symbolizes the end of the summer, which means no more white for many. And normally this is the big parties. This is the last weekend to do that before it gets cold.
Summer's last blast.
Summer's last blast is Labor Day. So, Dad, talk to us a little bit about Grandma Suggs working while you were growing up. Well, both grandparents, but also because you had great visibility to a different world of workplace than what it is now.
Yeah, very different. And the great work. I mean, both my parents, my dad came up from the South, my mom came from Missouri, and all I ever remember was my parents working. And my dad worked for a company called Whitehall's Laboratory, and they manufactured and they actually made medicine. Like, I don't know if you remember some of the medicine, but not Alka-Seltzer, but antihistamines. And my mom worked for Miles Laboratory. So two big companies that they worked for. And my mom also, she housekept too. So they worked very, very hard. And as a kid growing up, everybody around you had a job, and there was a great migration. A lot of African Americans moved to the north in the early '50s, and I know that Elkhart, my neighborhood, the time that we moved there, which was mostly Italian, really changed over the 20 years, where people started to move into the neighborhood, and they all had jobs. They all had some
Mm.
manufacturing jobs, 9 to 5 jobs. My dad was showing his check, man. It was like a big check for $120 for the week. At that time, gas was what, 20 cents a gallon. Go to the grocery store. My dad would come back, and mom would spend, $20 on groceries. That was a lot of money, but it was something that as a kid was everybody worked. The entrepreneurship, people owning their own business.
Right, as a privilege.
No, yeah, right. Everybody worked. All right. Now, so if anyone knows anything about my city, Elkhart, Indiana, it still is the trailer RV capital of the world. So a lot of people had jobs in the RV industry, and then there's the band industry, and there's silver, and there's a lot of industry. Actually, Elkhart was one of the richest cities per capita in the United States, so everybody had a job in Elkhart, and it was just something that we grew up. It was a way of life. You know, um, and then you aspired. In the summertime, I had jobs. Nichols Bakery. I would work at the bakery. You got a job in the summertime, so that mentality I know still exists, but it's interesting with our show on Friday how it's actually changing, because obviously that was 50 years ago, when I was a kid, 55 years ago. But you still see a little of that blue collar. Really, it's the foundation of who we are. And that's the part of our country right now that's really struggling, getting workers, working in the manufacturing, working in the warehouse, the retail industry. Those industries
Right.
are really struggling. So that kind of painted the picture that you
Yeah.
already did.
Well, families were built on industrial labor. They were built on for a long time, right? Immigrants, sometimes that was the only jobs they could get
Right.
when they first moved to America. And it kind of created this mentality of the blue collar work style, especially in the Midwest, as people were moving towards that direction, because that is, at the end of the day, we are moving from one side of the country to the other because that is how work was sporadically popping up. And we did create this blue collar work idea that moved through generations, right? It started with our grandparent and my grandparents, and went to you, and then it goes to me, and it'll go to my kids. Or that type of mentality trickles through families until they hit wealth, like wealthy. And then sometimes that blue collar will stay within them, and then eventually, generations below, they'll lose that blue collar style, and because there's just not that mentality anymore. Do you think that the style of work and determination that once was, right, sacrifice everything, do whatever you can to survive, has disappeared in today's society?
We'll do whatever it takes to make things work. You still have that mindset. I think we have a world of, we've had Generation X, we've had millenniums. I mean, where you get the
Yeah.
entitlement, in that mentality. So it still exists with a large population of our country, where, because we still have a large population of our country that are, coming from other countries, who really respect and appreciate to have a job, just having a job, you know. So we have a large segment of our country that still respects that. But then you have that another aspect of it. Just I think we mentioned that a little bit about the unemployment running out last week, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going, okay, now I have to go back to work, and I mean, it's encouraging people not to work, but I think you're right that
Yeah. Well, I would. I mean, for me, when I thought about this question, it was very much in challenge of everything we talked about on Friday. Because on Friday, we talked about the great resignation, and the beauty of people prioritizing life over wealth, and work, right? Family time over late hours, and missed vacations with your family over working over weekends. And so it's this question blatantly challenges that, because I do agree with you in the sense that through my generation to below me, and even with millennials, there is this idea, because I'm not a millennial, I think I'm Gen X. The There is this idea of entitlement because I think that we have so many options, right? We have so many colleges, we have so many, at the end of the day, there's so many different career paths in life. You could work from home, you could work in a school, you could work in a, you know what I mean? You could do whatever you want blatantly and somehow find a way to survive in America if you are American, right? And that is the privilege of being born in America. Now, I learned this when I was in college. I took a class that studied African American and African American development in young children. The average American child compared to the average, let's say, immigrant child of a Nigerian family, their work style, right, their work ethic and quality of their work is significantly different, right? Because American children have a higher. So here's my example. Say we have Billy, who was born in.
Where you going with this?
Who was born in Chicago, right? His parents were born in Chicago, the south suburbs, whatever, right? Billy's teacher says that Billy got a B minus because he didn't do this or something, and whatever, right? It's off the teacher's opinion. He takes it back home. His mom, who's a teacher, she goes, a B minus. This is a great paper, in my opinion. We need to go talk to the teacher right now. You deserve a B plus or an A minus, right? The Nigerian child takes his paper with the same grade home with the same review as from the teacher home to his Nigerian parents who are immigrants, who are working their butts off, who came to America to give him a better life. He brings the paper to them. They go, you just need to work harder. There's a significant difference because immigrants, and we've learned to see this, and there's Americans who have the same mentality, right? But we have learned as Americans that we, one, have so many options, and also we think we all know what's best for our kids. We also think that, well, you did the best you could. This must be on somebody else. This is somebody else needs to hold this accountability. And then when you look at immigrant families, they're immediately straightforward with, no, you need to work harder. And that's why we have started to see the success of immigrant children born in America to immigrant parents as a significantly different success rate, educational-wise, because there's an idea or this different mentality towards work and work ethic and accountability. And so I do think America, we are spoiled and we are spoiled. Yeah, we have entitlement to opportunity. And that's why we live here, right? This is why our families brought us here. This is what that is why this country is what it is. And so I think that the style of work of blue collar, get everything you can do to get it done, put your head down, lose a finger, you know what I mean? The mentality that went into what Labor Day, the generations before us was built on, what this country was built on, has deteriorated. But I think that's because as America, we have grown and evolved. We've added more cultures, we've added more jobs, we've added more opportunities. We are technologically more advanced than a lot of countries. And that's just kind of, I mean, it's like we're shooting ourselves in the foot, but we got some lucky feet. You know what I mean? We have so many great opportunities. And that's why I think that level of entitlement has changed the style of work and determination and work ethic from Americans, right? We have our own way of work hard, and that's still working hard, but it's working hard because we have these opportunities that we don't have to go dig in the dirt, you know what I mean, to plant a farm. It's very different than what it once was.
So I want to ask you this. Did you, put myself on the spot, your mommy on the spot, did you feel that if you came home with that grade, how were you treated? What was our reaction to that? Do you remember?
Well, first of all, I think it was a great day reaction, but I still was an average student. Let's be honest. Devin was the excelled student, right? You guys were okay from the years of development to right before high school, which is where you have kids learning what work ethic is, learning who they're going to be. You are a lot more strict on teaching work ethic. When a kid gets to decide who they want to be in America, that is when my grades became ABCs, and I still got to Duke, so it worked out once again because I had the opportunities, and I also knew I had the basketball gift to be able to carry me, because that's where a lot of work ethic went into, right? I worked hard in another area to help push me towards what I wanted to be at, right? Because I knew I wasn't going to be as smart as Devin, because he had a different, well, one, he was older than his grade. Two, which is a significant thing, right? Even though he hates when we say that, he was the oldest in his class, so he was more advanced in that sense. But also, he took more pride in studying, homework, this, and that. I was in the gym for 4 hours, and then you wanted me to study. I was like, all right, I'll do it, but I'm not going to be as attentive to it as Devin was. And so I think that that's where we saw the difference in us. But I think that the pressure on it that y'all provided was the same, in the sense that it was teaching work ethic. It was more of a, you're supposed to do this, so you're going to do it, which is very different than a lot of Americans. Some American parents are like, well, if you want to do it, you can do it and you'll succeed. If you don't want to do it, you won't do it and you'll fail. You make the choice. And that's also, I think, is great parenting, because they're teaching kids how to be self-accountable. But a lot of that is entitlement in itself, right? That we get two choices in how you guys want to parent us, into teaching work ethic, into teaching how to have a job, into teaching what you should be doing with your lives. Some people have grown up their whole lives thinking they have to have a job immediately, they have to have a job at all times, they have to, so they can provide for the family. That pressure is through a family and generation of generations that have taught each generation, this is how you have to live your life or else you'll die, or you'll do that. You know what I mean? And so that itself is a form of privilege and entitlement that we have in this country. There's families in Lagos, Africa, and if anybody knows that, there's a lot of slums. Their kids are out there hustling, working money. Parents are traveling to send money home. It's a completely different dynamic in the privilege we have in this country to be able to choose how we want to work, for sure.
Right. So the answer to your question is that you felt that we did enough to get you to appreciate that the results of your work was the results of your effort.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that you are in the workforce, and you said being an athlete, being an athlete is obviously a really great thing. Somebody asked me about that, being an athlete, how it transitions into understanding how to work and have a good job. But, I'm back coaching again with the younger kids. Some kids come to practice, some kids don't come to practice. Right. The parents' responsibility of making it accountable, making it important, making it a priority, even at that early age. That's where that foundation starts, right? Do you get your homework done? Don't you get your homework done? Okay. I mean, so I do remember me, because that's the way I grew up, Faith. Came home with a bad grade. I was, although I graduated with 3.0 at Ball State, it was hard. I got D's in high school, right? And it was, what are you looking at? I got a D, and it was, but I worked hard, and it was hard for me. It didn't come easy for me, but my parents never made the excuse that the reason that you got that D is because the teacher did something, right? It was on you. It was on you, right?
Yeah. And I think that there's this idea now that everything is through choice. And I think that is great. And I also think that can be bad in the long term. I think it's great because you're weeding out who really wants to be there, who really wants to succeed, and then you're also preparing, you're not giving them even the foundation to learn if they want to choose to be that person. And so I do like the idea of choice, because you're not forcing kids to do stuff that eventually they'll just not like to do. And then you'll have that situation where they just will stop doing it, right? But you also need to provide them that foundation to even know what they're choosing, right? Do they want to be this way, or do they want to be another way? Do they want to work hard and decide that, I got to rewrite this paper, or I can just be cool with my B minus. So there's that pull between the two. And I do have a question: does let go, let God apply to this period of the Great Resignation? It's when I talk about how does it apply, right? A lot of us, when we talk about the choice, we make the choice to step away from the hard, grueling work commitment that this society has been built off of, right? A lot of people are falling back and saying what's meant to be will be. What's meant to be for me will be. What God puts in front of me is what my path will be. And I think that's correct. I think that that's the way you need to live your life. But I also think that we have to understand that um, there's a difference between letting go and letting God in a direction of stuff you love, and letting go and letting God because you don't like working at a 9 to 5. There's a difference between your laziness and your inspiration and your dreams and your quality of life. There's a big difference in that. And I think that a lot of people quit because they just didn't want to work in an office anymore. And that's the truth. But it's how you move through that and what you do next and what you grow your quality of life. That you're saying that's what it was. Okay, what do you do now on the steps to help let go, let God be successful? And we say about this all the time. We talk about let go, let God in our, and we have made many shows on it. Let go and let God only works when you meet God 50% of the way.
He wants you to do the work. You know,
Yeah.
what Pat Summit, you can't coach effort. He wants you to do the work, right? You do everything you need to do, right? And then if you've done everything you need to do, and then so then you let it go. But just sitting back and saying God's going to take care of it, that's not going to work. That's not what He's said in the Bible. That's not it right there. So that's a very good point, Faith.
I just had to make sure we talked about that. Because we are talking, I wanted to dive into the ups and downs of work, but we all know the ups and downs of work, and I'll get into that in a second. But my last kind of Labor Day circulated question I have towards all of this is, so apparently this study came out that the young adults in today's society, right, so my generation, Devin's generation to maybe 30, have the same amount of anxiety and stress as a psychiatric patient in the 1950s. Is there more pressure for careers and success, or has the idea of hard work changed? Everything we've been talking about. And that's what we talked about with Naomi earlier. We're talking about it right now, right? Hard work changed. I think that when we talk about anxiety and stress, the fact that young adults have the same anxiety and stress as a psychiatric patient says a lot about what's going on back then to now. The fact that we treated stress and anxiety as psychiatric worthy compared to now everybody's got it. You know what I mean? I think that we talk about
the stigma behind it is so different today.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people suffer from anxiety and stress when they're in a position they don't like. That's at the end of the day, that's a big one. When they're uncomfortable, and so when they're in an uncomfortable job, they're upset, they're stressed, they're anxious, they don't like this, they feel like their deadlines are too much, they don't believe. All that stuff goes into it, and I think that as we're seeing this great resignation happen, I think that, and we talked about it on Friday. I just wanted to say this little fact because I feel like this very much is motivating what's happening in the terms of that, right? We see life is too short with COVID. And now we're starting to see people are comparing constantly. Comparison is the thief of joy, social media wise, right? And that's causing a lot of people to want to step away from their corporate jobs, from the requirements of big money, to doing something more quality of life centered.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that with you because I thought you would like it because I read it right after the show on Friday. And I was like, So let's dive a little bit into careers as we near our last maybe 10 minutes of the show. Dad, the ups of careers, right? How do you know a job or position is for you? How did you land actually in corporate America after becoming an athlete? And why do you think that was a great transition for you, knowing who you were?
Well, if you know my story, the transition for playing professional football to the normal world was very difficult. So I had to do some personal house cleaning, and kind of redefine my life because, NFL is, what do they say? NFL stands for what? Not for long,
For long.
not for long. And so we all go through that paradigm shift. And I just had to realize that I had the same level of energy. I had the same talent. I was intelligent. I had a college degree, and I just got some professional help. I got a headhunter. I got somebody to help me with the basics of how to do a resume. You know, the headhunter really helped me. Rick Morency really helped me out. Just helped me look at you, look what you've accomplished. Let's take those same qualities that you use to become a professional athlete. Okay, and you were not just a professional athlete, you also was a college grad. And let's rebrand that. And what that what the results of that was, I was a person that I was outgoing, I could speak, had a great personality. I was influencer, and that's what got me into sales. And it was a perfect fit for me. And I grew into that role to the point where I was able to coach it too, and be a leader. And that's what I think that was my sweet spot with doing life coaching. But it takes a lot of work. I know that really quick when your senior year, you had a little anxiety because no one really prepared you for how quick this transition is going to happen because we're so busy being an athlete, right? And so you really need to begin to get that coaching and someone to mentor you, and that's why life coaching is such a good career. Get somebody that can really help identify what your talents are. You think you know what they are, but get them and hone in on your skills and brand them, just like what you do for a living right now. You know, brand yourself, rebrand yourself, and put yourself out there. And that's what I was able to do is
Yeah.
rebrand myself.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing is like because we want to make sure we land in the space that is where we will grow. You don't want to force yourself. And I think that's what the entitlement of this generation is a lot of our choices coming out of college is make sure I go somewhere where I'll grow, I'm comfortable.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And if I am uncomfortable and it's a good space. And that's why I think that kids are so picky about employment. And I think that's why there's more people looking for I think there's more jobs open right now than there are people looking for them because someone would rather land somewhere where they actually think they're going to do a good job in comparison to maybe in your generation where you guys were like, okay, this is what I want to do. Let me just figure out how to get there and figure out how to start and I'll just do it, right? Now there's this is just that is I think is the difference. I think it's good. I think it's bad. I think that sometimes you do want that like grind and that competitive nature to just do stuff and then you'll figure it out later to be successful, right? And then there's also the kids who are like, I want to make sure I'm in a position. It's different than the typical medical path, right? People who want to become doctors, right? But I have met a lot of my peers who were saying, yeah, I'm becoming a doctor. And now they're becoming physician's assistants, or now they're becoming photographers, or now they're doing, right. They started and then they were like, why do I want to do this again? Because my whole life people told me that's what the job that it's supposed to be most successful. That's the job that I'm supposed to do, right? I went to Duke, I did this, I did it. And so that's where I think there's a little shift in how careers are kind of chosen nowadays. Kids are now choosing quality of the job over the salary. And for me, like what I do, it doesn't pay crazy money, but it's very much something I love to do, which is to be
Billing, yeah,
creative, right? And to build stuff. And so for me, that's my biggest thing is like nowadays kids are choosing off of that. And I think that's great. If you could push the two together though, where you have that level of grind and like determination and competitiveness along with finding stuff you love and the patience for that, I think that's a great start when you're choosing a career. And even when you're starting to redo your career, right? Maybe you've worked 15 years in corporate America and now you want to dive into nonprofit work. I think that that's kind of what we're seeing a lot. And I think it's pretty cool if we put the two together.
yeah.
Now, in our last couple minutes, I want to navigate losing a job and being laid off because we talked about the high. Let's talk about the lows. A lot of people lost their jobs in COVID. A lot of people quit their jobs in COVID. A lot of people got laid off in COVID because companies got bought out. What are some forms of advice you have? Because honestly, you work longer than I have. That you have for those starting over and also navigating that job loss.
Well, I think it gets back to the beginning of finding the job too. What did you do when you first started looking for a job, right? That mindset. Now, getting back to what we talked about on Friday, some people had said, okay, I'm not, I'm going to completely change my paradigm on how I'm going to navigate work going forward
Right.
and do my own thing, right? Because I want to get away from the things that are stopping me from seeing my kids and watching my kids grow and watch their sports and spend more time with my family, right?
Right.
And then, obviously unemployment is always an option, which was huge over this past year because it bailed a lot of people out. But I think it gets back to what I was talking about when I first stopped playing professional football is, you had a really good show on purpose. What is your purpose in life? At this particular part of my life, what do I want out of my life? What's going to make me happy? But at the same time, allow me to take care of my basic needs. You know,
Mhm.
my bills, take care of my kids, depending on what kind of situation that you're in. If you have a family, those decisions are going to be a little different. If you have another person in the household, that's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But those are all some of the same things that I talked about when I first looked at my transition from, and I've transitioned a lot, you know, but it gets back to redefining yourself and not being afraid to have the courage to make a change. I mean, you had the courage at 23, 24 years old to decide I want to navigate instead of being in the back seat and letting somebody else navigate my path. I want to be in the front seat. Now
Right.
that's a little scary because you got to go. Okay, I got to get my own insurance. I got to do this, but you did it. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I think that's the path a lot of people are looking at because it gives you more options.
Yeah.
There's
How
no
much?
limit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
How important is networking in this process as
Oh,
well?
huge, huge. And I think that's one thing that I want, you talk to me coaching, I cannot teach you enough of how important it is to leverage your network. That's the easiest way. And it's actually been the one way that I've been able to find the most opportunities is my network,
Right.
my network, because I have a huge network and now you have a huge network. Well, those are the things that you have to really tap into. A lot of people are not as comfortable getting themselves out there and putting themselves in a room where hey, here I am, but it's
What are the
important.
first? Yeah. What are the first steps when you meet somebody to create a good networking relationship?
Well, you got to connect with them first. Connect with them. Find something that's common. Be genuine. I mean, it doesn't have to be about work.
Right.
You built that relationship. Kids and kids in college, kids in sports. You built the relationship, right? Well, what do you do for a living? And start into that. You got to continue being that genuine person, which is something that I learned from my wonderful mother.
Yeah.
And you're still got good at that too. Is especially being a woman in a profession is going to networking groups where there's women, you know, and putting yourself out there, and joining not-for-profit groups. The
Yeah.
more opportunity you have to put yourself out there. Again, it's about branding, right, Faith? It's about
Yeah.
branding yourself.
Yeah. Well, wonderful stuff. Wonderful show. We talked a lot about jobs, careers, paths, changes, and the mentality behind workplace etiquette and stuff nowadays. I thought it was a great show. Happy Labor Day to all. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning. If you want to just rewind, we had a lot of great tidbits throughout the show, a great start to the show as well. We'll see you guys on Friday with the new live show. And once again, Wednesday, we start the huddle of next week and we'll show you guys the trailer once again. But thank you to Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and of course this key platform that we're on out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is Faith Family Focus. We're going to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strengthening their family core. And of course, our slogan.
Let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let love, and bring on that huddle.
And bring on that huddle. We'll see everyone this week.